So I just want to welcome all of you to the Path of Daleth Pathworking class, and this is the well, there's only 3 more after this, so that's pretty exciting. But as I mentioned before, there's some other stuff that I will most likely continue moving forward with into the future with this space, if people want to attend, or maybe other people will start attending. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Path of He before we move forward into Daleth. I want to open the floor for you guys to share your experiences of that path. Now, I mean, as we have, so go ahead and let loose on your keyboards and let me know if anything that you experienced that was interesting or troubling or anything like that. But as I said before, these latter paths are so simple in their structure that there's in all likelihood, the experience is just going to be one of sort of a blissful connection with all things and feeling rather extraordinary. Or feeling like you've almost reached that state of bliss, but you're just shy of it, and hoping to on the next run to get a little bit closer. Most likely, those are the experiences that you guys are having. But I'd like you guys to share whatever has been going on with you. That would be really nice. The path of Daleth is a little bit. It's an interesting one in the tree model of things because of where it lies, and also the path of Gimel, which is coming up next, also has an interesting quality to it, and we'll discuss that next week or the next time that we meet. We'll get into Daleth in a little bit. So nobody has anything that they want to say about the path of He? Any experiences in your lives in general that seem interesting and related to the work that we've been doing here? in some ways, only they are just really focused on the angel rather than the path. Robin asks, would you call upon the archangels of both Sephiroth involved, or only the Sephiroth you're moving into? Okay, well, I would probably go with the one that you're moving into rather than the one that you started from, particularly because in the recordings at this point, I mean, with Daleth, you're actually going all the way up to Binah, you're going through all of the other Sephiroth. You're starting with Malkut and going all the way through them with 30-second intervals. It's the longest one so far. But I mean, you could do both. But certainly, I mean, the structure of these path workings is really toward the next Sephira in the sequence. So I mean, that would be the natural way to go. Juan says, seems compressed in time during the recordings, and not sure when at times it would be appropriate to do so. Sandalphon has become more and more detailed, for example. Robin said, I'm thinking whether ascent or descent would be towards the Sephiroth, as you just said. Yeah, I mean, it depends on your purpose. If you're, I mean, for instance, with Daleth, you actually have 3 possibilities, because that path is associated with Venus. So there's an archangel that relates to Venus, which would be the archangel that also relates to Netzach. So I mean, there's multiple choices of ways that you could approach it. And for creating something, you might well approach the archangel of Venus, or you might well approach the archangel of Chokmah, or you might well approach the archangel of Binah. Any one of those could be useful, and also the archangel of Tiferet as well. So I mean, there's many choices, and sort of the color tone of what it is that you're wanting to experience, what you're wanting to accomplish, really plays a role in that. If you're looking to create something through a sex magical or a sex magic-esque kind of a thing, then the Venusian archangel is rather appropriate. If you're looking to create something from a more high, minded spiritual place, then I think that even the thing is, even Sandalphon is an excellent archangel to approach for creating things, as his role is to bring one's prayers up to the divine. So there's many choices there. Your own sort of inner compass of what feels right is probably pretty accurate most of the time, as well as approaching correspondences. If you're wanting to do something business oriented, then you should approach an angel that relates more to that, like the archangel of Mercury. Well, and that's good that you feel that way. Kevin says, seems each time I get closer to them, and that is an excellent thing, and feeling like you are connected to them. As I said, it's not necessarily totally necessary. It's not absolutely vital for you to utilize a ceremonial kind of an approach to things either. So, you can simply just connect with them, as you've already sort of created that connection. I like my invocational recordings, but they aren't absolutely vital. Brendine says, you mentioned contractions of the universe. When working with the energy, have you ever heard of going into feelings of physical contractions, like a woman giving birth would best describe the feelings? Sounds strange to ask that question. I have never experienced that. I think that would make sense. That as you are connecting with, this is going to sound strange, but I think it's appropriate to this path of Daleth, since it has a Venusian quality to it. There's a strong connection between our sexual bodies and our spiritual bodies, and there's a reason for that. In most metaphysical sexual discussions, there's a realization that in our male and female parts, we are creating in a similar way to in which the universe is created. We spread forth an idea, and it grows, and it's cared for, and it's pushed into the world, and it's an act of creation similar to the way in which the universe is created. So I don't think that it would be at all odd. I think that there's a sexual quality to a lot of mystical experiences for both men and women, and so a birthing kind of a quality doesn't seem strange at all, although I haven't had that experience myself. Brendine thinks it's awesome that Robin had a similar experience. Robin said, also interesting, a recent dream, observing what appeared to be a Russian couple performing natural childbirth. The male is comforting, helping the female by applying gentle pressure along the female's abdomen, pushing the child towards the birth canal. Birth occurred, and then noticeable movement at the female's pubic area. Something else is to be expelled. Huh. Well, having witnessed 3 births now, I know that there is a considerable amount of other stuff that comes out as well as the child. Absolutely. I mean, these recordings are definitely getting into very sort of birthing, sexual, creation-oriented imagery and experiences. Brendine said that is the role Kevin has played when it has occurred. The comforting role of support. Kevin asks the very appropriate question that I was kind of wondering myself, but I didn't ask, which is, how did you know they were both that they were Russian? Juan says, with many of the previous recordings on the paths, it would seem as if we are watching more so than interacting, whereas the last few, for example, Hay and Daleth, feel as if they want more interactivity. In what sense of fashion would you like to see us interacting with the path workings? Robin says they appeared to be Russian Slavic, unknown for sure. TV says possibly they were both wearing fur hats. And Robin confirms that was not actually the case. It just seemed that way. Sometimes in dreams we do know things that we wouldn't necessarily know in regular life, but we just experience them that way. So anyway, it's interesting because Russia is an important sort of fermenting ground of a lot of modern mystical speculation, from Theosophical Society to Gurdjieff. Anyway, Juan's question about how would you like to see us interacting with these path workings? Well, I think that in almost all of them, there shouldn't really be a passive quality to them. Almost all of them are quite experiential. If it has felt like you were doing more of a passive experiencing of them, that's fine. That's a phase of the work, but I would make an effort to be in the first person experiencing them as much as possible. This is actually something that's fairly common. I think actually TV may have had this experience early on in his own work, that people will some people, when you ask them to imagine something or experience something in the inner plane, they'll actually create a small version of themselves and watch them doing it, and other people will imagine that they're doing it in their physical, that they are doing it. And this is actually something that happened with the inner temple a lot too. Even if people are imagining themselves within the inner temple, they imagine the inner temple as sort of being about the size of their head, and so it's a little tiny version of themselves that's going in and doing a lot of stuff. Both of which are fine, but they don't cause as much change as when we create a scenario in our consciousness that is as close to our lives as possible. So in other words, if you are doing the path working, rather than imagining a small temple in which you're watching a version of yourself doing things, that you imagine a temple that is surrounding you, that is full size, that you are in it as much as you can possibly create for yourself, and all of the experiences that you go through in it are experiences that are happening to you. That's going to be very useful, and it's also useful in the New Hermetics tools. And if we continue this forward and start doing New Hermetics oriented sessions with this class period, you're going to find that there's a tendency sometimes for people to do that, to imagine things, because sometimes it's easier, especially if it's something to do with like balls of energy or something like that. It's much easier to imagine a picture in front of you, and then you can just put the ball of energy on the picture. But of course, it's not really impacting you as strongly as it would if you were imagining the ball of energy actually inside of yourself. We can actually do an experiment right now, since we have plenty of time. I'd like you to just imagine a picture of yourself, like just and everyone just really do this right now. A picture of yourself as if it's hanging on the wall, what you would look like, and imagine a globe of burning hot, like, burning potassium or something like that, where, it's like fiery hot glowing energy above the head of that picture. And now, instead, erase that and imagine just above your own head that there's a burning, fiery, hot globe of, burning, glowing, massive amounts of energy. And I'm sure you can notice, even if you weren't doing it that much, that there's a big difference between those two things. The one where you're imagining it in the distance, you can get affected by it in some way. It's like, any other story. But when it's actually in your own body, there's a sense of almost like, whoa, is this good? Is this bad? I don't, this is a strange. You start to have sensations associated with it, and changes are actually happening inside of you. Does that make sense to everybody? So Kevin says that he literally places himself in that world itself. So in a third-person view, I find that many people see in the inner worlds that way. This is Juan talking. It's why I wanted your thoughts on just how you would like for us to approach it. And in the exercises you just gave us, I could feel the heat over my head when you asked for it to appear over my head instead of the image. In the one place you actually feel the sensation. Exactly. When you're placing it first person, and you imagine, if you imagine a picture of a guy getting stabbed with a knife, you go, ooh, that's an unpleasant image. But if you imagine a knife actually stabbing into yourself, it's a very unpleasant experience. Likewise, if you imagine someone eating ice cream or something that you really enjoy, you go, oh, that looks like that person's really enjoying something. But if you actually imagine yourself eating ice cream, it's like, that's something that you're really kind of experiencing on some level. Kevin says, if I imagine the picture of me, I don't get the feelings at all. Now, in NLP, and we use a little bit of this in the initiate level of the New Hermetics, there are places in which you can imagine a third-person view of yourself and actually have a purpose. But it's of limited value, and more for specific things rather than a general usage. I would recommend making things first person as much as possible, unless otherwise instructed, or if you just want to experiment. But That's always going to be the more impactful place. Right. You don't want to imagine stabbing yourself if possible, or stabbing other people. Both of those things are probably not the best things to put in your mind. So, I'm fairly certain that most of you have done a little bit of both in these exercises, going back and forth between those two things. That's a very common occurrence in people's consciousness, that we place things in our body, and then we exit that body and see ourselves doing things, and then back and forth, and that's fine. Integrating as much as possible is obviously the goal. So, unless anyone has any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end this session for the day. So, Robin, you don't want them to go forward. You want them to get back on path with us. Robin says that she's going to cut off the electricity to Brendy, Kevin, and Juan when they try and listen to the Gmail recordings. They all laughed. Okay, so it's all right. You guys can go ahead. There's no, but like I said, you're going to have less to say about Daleth if you're already gone to Gimel, because that's going to be where your head is at, So, it's fine either way though. Juan has one more question. Juan wants to know if we could have a group class in meditation on the winter solstice. I think that would be a wonderful idea. I'd actually like to. One of my long-term goals was to have sort of a convocation taking place on those four quarterly holidays in which people would actually physically get together at various places. But the number of people that are involved at this point in the movement, I don't know if it would really warrant that happening. The tough thing is that you need to have some place for something like that to take place. Obviously, for the winter solstice, an outdoor place wouldn't work too well. Thanks. TV. TV says that it was a good meditation. Are you talking about the fall equinox meditation or the winter solstice meditation? That he says that it was sobering. I feel like the winter solstice meditation is more celebratory than sobering, but yeah, I mean, in the Golden Dawn system, that they would have a large meeting every equinox, and ideally trade head of the temple roles at that time. Yeah, I mean, technologically, I don't know whether I could have a streaming winter solstice meditation that we could all listen to at the same time. I don't know if I'm really set up for that. Although we could sort of, I could put it up on YouTube, and we could meet before and then meet afterwards. I don't know if. Yeah, okay, TV saying the one that he listened to was the one with the scale with the big rock symbolizing what one could have accomplished. Yeah, that's the that's the fall equinox one, which discusses the harvest of what we've accomplished for the year. Yeah, that one is a bit more sobering, I agree. But a good one still, nonetheless. Juan says he's up for a web meditation in class on that event. You could just guide us all into meditation. Yeah, I mean, I could just do a live version of the same that I did the recording. That would be perfectly nice. I'm gonna look into Skype, because I might like to switch over to Skype or Uvu for when we are done with these path workings. I just wanted to keep the same place for them so we aren't jumping all around. But yeah, I'll get some thought into that winter solstice matter, and we'll make something happen for that. I don't know how many people will to attend, but especially since we're getting fairly close to the solstice at this point. Excellent, Robin. Well, I'm going to let you guys go for today, and I think next weekend is... Let me just pull up a calendar here. Next weekend is the 15th. My daughter has a dance recital, and I think it might be that day. So it might, and then the week after that is the solstice. So we might be a few weeks before we actually get to do the next one of these. It might be the 29th before we do the so yeah, well, but I'll be in touch. Now it's interesting because we've actually got a few people who are in the other continent, or the other side of the world, so they're actually going to be experiencing summer solstice rather than winter solstice, and that's, I don't know, it's an interesting thing to that the solstices and equinoxes are not actually global, they're hemispherical. Well, no, I mean, it's not actually adding anything to my workload one, because all I have to do is, I mean, I can use the exact script that I used for the previous one and just simply do it live. So it's just, a matter of getting everybody together and reading it. Of course, if I do that, I won't have the, I've added some little sounds and whatnots into it. We wouldn't have that, but... well, the thing is, Robin, the way that, I don't know if you've listened to any of those recordings, but the way that they are structured, Robin's asking if we could have the winter and summer at the same time. The way that they're structured is basically based upon the seasonal cycles of the year. So at winter solstice is like the refresh button on the year, and then at spring equinox is kind of the growing of things, and the summer solstice is the sort of preparing for the harvest, and then the autumn equinox is the harvesting. Right. For Rurik is at this point moving more towards that summer fullness of flowering and fruits beginning to come, whereas for us up here it's exactly the opposite. Everything has died off, and we're we're getting ready to eat our the last parts of our food reserves before we of course we don't have to do that because we just get Rurik's friends to ship us all their food. But in our past, that would have been the way that it was. Yeah, I mean that's certainly one, or we could even, I mean, if I felt like it, I could. I mean, it's only Rurik and maybe like 2 or 3 other people that are in Australia. There's no one in South America as far as I know, and so I mean what I might do is maybe discuss it a little bit at the thing, and then maybe Rurik could listen to the appropriate recording. Right. I mean, because of the fact that Robin points out the Saturday and Sunday, and obviously there are calendar differences because of things as well. Although, so anyway, I'll think about all these matters, and we can talk more